Welcome to Part 2 of the CFOA 2016 film study of illegal personal contact. This portion of the film study will discuss the definition of a defenseless player and excessive contact. We will see examples of illegal and legal blindside blocks. I'm your host, Mark Andrews, from the Orange County Football Officials Association. All opinions and guidance expressed in this video have been sanctioned by the California Football Officials Association's Instructional Chairman, Bobby Kennedy, and Steve Coover, Instructional Chair of the San Diego County Football Officials Association and the CIF Rules Interpreter. Before we begin our discussion of excessive contact and defensive players, which are all new concepts, let's talk about fouls that we've always called. These are the dead ball fouls, the fouls away from the play, and those are covered in 943B. No player or non-player shall charge into or throw an opponent to the ground after he is obviously out of the play or after the ball is clearly dead, either in or out of bounds. Now these cover our standard dead ball fouls and fouls behind the play. Let's take a look at some examples. This first example is illustrative of a violation of the first part of 943B. No player or non-player shall charge into or throw an opponent to the ground after he is obviously out of the play. Let's take a look. Players highlighted with the players involved. A8 is going to foul the B player that was highlighted. You can see the play going away. This crew does a great job, the referee in particular. He's shifted off of his primary key, which is the quarterback, and he's watching the action big picture, and he's going to get this foul. He recognizes it. Comes that flag toss. He's going to hit that spot perfectly. Oh! No problem. He's going to go over and pick that flag up and place it at the spot of the foul. Great job. Let's talk about how to report this foul. Now remember, this is a foul that occurs behind the play, so oftentimes it's missed by the coaching staff. So you want to report it using the verbiage of the rule. Coach, your player number 8 charged into the defender number 24 when he was clearly out of the play. This next play shows a violation of the second part of 943B. No player or non-player shall charge into or throw an opponent to the ground after the ball is clearly dead, either in or out of bounds. So there's nothing new here. This is a standard dead ball personal foul. This is a foul we've called for a long time. Keep an eye on A66. He's going to come in late. He's lining up B45. B45 recognizes the play is over, and 66 is going to hit him late. So let's go back to the rule book to discuss Rule 943G. We saw it earlier. It's under illegal personal contact, Section 4. No player or non-player shall, G, make any contact with an opponent, including a defenseless player, which is deemed unnecessary or excessive and which incites roughness. So there are a couple of terms here that need clarification. The first is defenseless player, and we'll be looking at that next. The other is excessive contact. What is excessive? And we're going to look at the points of emphasis and then look at some examples. So let's begin with the discussion of a defenseless player by looking at the definition in Rule 2. It's covered under Section 32, Article 16. It reads, a defenseless player is a player who, because of his physical position and focus of concentration, is especially vulnerable to injury. Now, does the rule book give us any more to go on? Yes, it does. In the case book, under 943, the comment section, is there suggested guidance or rules coverage on a defenseless player who should be protected from unnecessary roughness? Yes. Defenseless players are especially vulnerable to potential injury. Game officials must diligently observe all action and watch for contact against players who are deemed defenseless. Examples include, but are not limited to, A quarterback moving down the line of scrimmage who has handed or pitched the ball to a teammate and then makes no attempt to participate further in the play. B, a kicker who is in the act of kicking the ball or who has not had a reasonable amount of time to regain his balance after the kick. So this is the prohibition against roughing a kicker. He's a defenseless player. A passer who is in the act of throwing the ball or who has not had a reasonable length of time to participate in the play again after releasing a ball. Again, the prohibition against roughing a passer. A pass receiver whose concentration is on the ball and the contact by the defender is unrelated to attempting to catch the ball. We're going to see examples of this foul later on. E, a pass receiver who has clearly relaxed when he has missed the pass or feels he can no longer catch the pass. Again, we'll be seeing some examples of this one. A kick returner attempting to catch a kick. This is kick-catch interference. A kick receiver who is immediately contacted after touching the ball. A player on the ground. Any player who has relaxed once the ball has become dead. We just saw an example of that in our discussion of 943B. A player who receives a blindside block. Examples of that foul are coming up. A ball carrier already in the grasp of an opponent whose forward progress has been stopped. And lastly, any player who is obviously out of the play. And again, we just saw an example of that. So now that we know what a defenseless player is, let's take a look at why that's important. Back to 943G. No player or non-player shall make any other contact with an opponent, including a defenseless player, which is deemed unnecessary or excessive. What's excessive? That's covered in the points of emphasis. Second paragraph. Considering this potential for serious injury, it is critical that those situations involving unnecessary or excessive contact on players are eliminated whether or not the contact is otherwise deemed legal. What does that mean? Otherwise deemed legal. In other words, a hit that would bring a runner down, a legal hit, could be deemed illegal against a defenseless player. A block that would be deemed legal against a non-defenseless player could be deemed illegal against a defenseless player. Read on. While unnecessary or excessive contact can occur between any players, special attention must be given to those players whose focus of concentration makes them especially vulnerable to injury. Where have we heard that before? Rule 2. A defenseless player is a player who, because of his physical position and focus of concentration, is especially vulnerable to injury. So based on the points of emphasis and 943G, we are going to focus our attention on excessive contact fouls that involve defenseless players. Up first are blindside blocks. This first example of a personal foul for excessive contact on a blindside block comes on a broken play. We've noticed while reviewing film that blindside blocks often occur when a runner reverses field. Broken plays, scrimmage kicks, and interceptions are plays that lend themselves to a reversal of field, and officials should anticipate the possibility of a blindside block in those situations. A3 at the bottom of the screen is going to come back and block B11. The block is not high enough to be targeting, but the contact is excessive and therefore a foul. Let's watch this from another angle and break down the components that make up this foul. There's B11. His focus is clearly on the quarterback. Therefore, he satisfies the definition of a defenseless player. Now we are going to see A3's block. This block could have been initiated with the blocker's hands, and the block would still have been successful, yet done so in a safe and legal manner. This next example is very similar to the previous play in that we have a quarterback scrambling, reversing field, and his lineman performing a blindside block in order to protect him. Let's take a look from the side. We're going to see the players involved coming up. That is A51 going to block B85. We're going to watch it in real time. You don't get a real good sense there of how extreme this block is, but in the next clip I think you will get a real good idea of the severity of this block. So same play, quarterback A5 reversing field. Here we see the two players involved. You can see B85 pursuing the quarterback. He's quite a bit behind him. He has his focus on the quarterback and is by definition defenseless. I'm going to run it in slow motion so you can see the actions of A51. He comes in underneath, dips. That's a questionable targeting call. I would say he hit him in the chest, not above the shoulders. But it really doesn't matter. Okay? If you're in doubt, simply rule this excessive contact. Don't go to targeting. It's the same foul in terms of a penalty. Now, NFHS has stated that this type of block is excessive, but if it was performed with the hands, and I think we can make an argument that the hands would have been just as successful a block without the shoulder dip, this would have been a legal block. This last example of a personal foul for excessive contact on a blindside block is on a scrimmage kick. And unlike the other plays, there is no reverse of field, but the player that commits the blindside block has a long run up to the K player, and he decides to hit him with the shoulder contact. Let's take a look. Now ask yourself if he could have accomplished the same result without the shoulder. There's the two players involved, R7 and K52. K52 has got his focus on the receiver, and by definition he is a defenseless player. Okay, let's run that back. I'm going to delete the stoppage and we'll go from there. I want you to look at it in real time. Okay, we got two flags on the play. Good calls. So we've seen several examples of personal fouls for excessive contact on blindside blocks. Let's talk about a legal blindside block. Generally, a legal blindside block would involve a deflective block with the hands not above the shoulders, or a screening block, again below the shoulders, which isn't initiated with the blocker's helmet or an upward thrust of the shoulder. This first example of a legal blindside block, it comes on a punt return, and you're going to see at least two blindside blocks. Both of them are legal. You'll note the blockers have their heads up, their hands out. You can see the difference in the safety factor relating to these blocks. And we're going to take a look at it from the end zone. I'm going to stop frame it so you can see the approach angles. So here's the first legal block. Watch the hands. Here's the second. You can see both these blocks are forceful. They put the defenders on the ground. They're effective in springing the runner for a long gain. This next example is another legal blindside block using the hands, and I'm going to run this in real time because I think when you initially see it you might think, ooh, that's illegal, but we're going to run it back slowly and show you the legal aspects of this block. So I'll just let this run. It's going to be an interception. There's the block. Okay, I'm going to run that back and we're going to slow it down. Now watch the defender. His head is up, his hands are out. That's a hard hit, but it's perfectly legal. This next example of a legal blindside block occurs on a broken play. It's a quarterback scramble, reversing field, has all the elements that we normally see with blindside blocks, and we have a defenseless player involved. We'll run it. So A80, who's going to be highlighted here, is going to block B60. You can see B60's concentration and focus is on the quarterback. He's defenseless. I'm going to run this in real time and then we'll run it back. Now that hit is done with the back. It's not with the helmet. Let's watch it in slow motion. You can see how effective it is. It knocks 60 off his line. He's effectively out of the play. That's a legal block. Great job. This next play is another example of a legal blindside block. This one involves the screening type of blindside block. This play also has a couple of other interesting components. We'll have a low block that's legal, and we also have a pass reception caught by the quarterback, and that's legal. So let's just take a look at it. Now the first two players highlighted are the involved in the low block. Just keep an eye on them. You can see the defender is off the ground, and one of the requirements for an illegal low block is that one or both feet have to be on the ground, so that's legal. Now comes the, you also saw the reception by the quarterback after it bounced off that defender's hands. It came back to the quarterback. He can receive that legally, and he can't throw it again, but he can run. So now we're going to have the blindside block with the two players highlighted here. Okay, we're going to take one more look at this from the end zone. Going to run it in slow motion so you can see the block, see the reception by 18. So there's the defender leading his feet. There's 18 receiving the ball, his own pass. Now these are the two players that are involved in the blindside block. B51, again, defenseless. He's got his concentration on the quarterback. Watch what A80 does. Comes in, uses his back to screen B51. Great job. So that'll do it for part 2 of our 2016 film study involving illegal personal contact. We're going to move away now from blindside blocks and discuss excessive contact on a defenseless receiver.